at how to make these beautiful love heart granny squares for Indigo or Crimson Dreams. These are constructed in a very clever way. First of all, we make the heart shape with, in this case, the cardinal colour. Then we're going to make the surface crochet in the pink, and eventually we will then add the granny square. And if I turn it to the back, you will see that the granny square is kind of attached into the back of the heart before we sort of start making it, working it outwards. And the granny square sort of joins the heart up at the top, at the bottom, and at either side. All right, so I will show you how to do all of that. I'm going to be working in slightly different colorways just because they work slightly, or you can see them slightly easier on the video. A few things to start with. Just be aware that we're going to be working with 2 different size hooks, so we'll pay attention to when we need to change hooks. Also, not everything is worked from with the right side facing, so we'll have a talk about that as we go. We're going to be working into some front loops. There's quite a lot going on with this square, so we'll work through it piece by piece. It should be nice and clear. Make sure you have a good old read through of the pattern and following it to the letter, particularly where we're told to sew in, at the time we're told to sew in. That's something I don't tend to do as I work, but on this occasion I absolutely will. So just a few ground rules, let's get started. Right, I'm going to start with a 4mm hook, and I am using just this pink yarn. This is going to make the love heart. I'm just using this because it seems to show up just a little bit easier than the cardinal. So just ignore the colours, look at the technique. Right, we're going to start with a magic loop, and this is how I do my magic loop. It's not very elegant, but it works. The cut end goes over my fingers. I will wrap the yarn once around my finger, put my hook under the cross, clamp my other forefinger down on it so nothing can go anywhere, and then just sort of maneuver, pick up the yarn and maneuver it through the loop and secure it with a chain. All right, I'll do that one more time. So cut end goes over my over the back of my fingers, make a loop, put the hook under where the cross is, clamp it in place, pick it up, the yarn, and go through the loop and secure with a chain. So you've got like that little lasso situation going on. Right, so I'm going to do 3 chains. So there's 1, 2 and 3, and that is going to count as my first treble. Okay, I'm now going to work 14 real trebles into that loop. Okay, so just to be clear, yarn round, go through the loop, and I'm just creating the treble into that center point. So I will go ahead and make 14. Okay, here we are with the last one. So I've made 14 trebles, and then obviously we had our starting 3 chains, so we've got 15 in total, and I'm just going to pull that center and it flows up nice and neatly. All right, now your natural inclination here is to close that circle, but we don't want to do that. We want to continue with this. So what we're going to do now is turn our work. We're going to start working back around the ring. Right, we're going to do 1 chain, so that's our turning chain, and we're going to start to work front loops only. Now if you're not sure what that means, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to pick any stitch here. I'll pick this one here. Now if I just tilt it slightly, you can see the V, can't you? You can see one little leg of the V here, or stitch, one at the back and one at the front. Now when we say working front loops only, rather than putting our hook all the way under both like so you can see there's two legs of the stitch going over the top of the hook, we're just going to go into the front one. So I will bring my hook up between the V of the stitch, and you can see there's just one thread going across the top, one strand of yarn going across the top, and I create my stitch in there as so. So that is what working into front loops only means, and we're going to do that all the way around on this round. So I've made my turning chain, and I'm going to start with 1 double crochet into the base of that chain. So that is that one there. Okay, if you are not sure, if it looks difficult for you to pick up, I will take it back. So this is where we are before I've turned. If you find that tricky, pop a little stitch marker in there, and that'll make life really easy for you to be able to see where things go. It might also be easy if you do your turning chain before you turn. I keep working up, don't I, over here? You might always, like I said, do your turning chain before you turn, and once you've turned, it does make it slightly easier to see where you are. So the stitch at the base, I'm just going to put my hook under that one leg, so you can see just one strand of yarn going over the top, and I will create my 1 double crochet. It does become easier to spot these as you work, but if you just work into front loops only, you won't go wrong anyway. Right, so 1 double crochet is complete. Here is our next stitch, which I am going to skip, so nothing is happening in there. I'm going to work into the next stitch, which is this one here, and I'm going to work 5 trebles into there, front loop only. So yarn is around the hook ready. I am just going to pick up that one strand of yarn, you can see, so that's the front loop only, and I'm going to work 5 treble. 1 and 2 3 4 and 5. Now what that's going to create is this lovely curve of the heart. Okay, so that's our 5 treble into that stitch, 1 half treble into the next stitch along. So again, front loop only, pick up that front loop and create your half treble. Okay, and then we're going to do double crochet into the next 3 stitches, front loops only. 1, 2, 3. If I stop there, turn it round, you can see what's happening. We're creating that heart, so we're coming down towards the point. We're going to create the point now. Right, we're going to do 1 half treble into the next stitch, front loop only, 1 treble. Now this treble is the actual point of the heart. This is the pointy low part. You can sort of see it's upside down, but you can see, can't you? We're going to stop here and put a stitch marker. We're going to place a stitch marker, and I'll show you where we're going to place it. It's going to be on the other side of the work, in the loop that remains of the stitch we've just made, sorry. So we've used front loop only of this stitch, and when I turn it over, you can see what's happening when I'm working these front loops only. I'm getting this nice little ridge. Can you see that circular ridge that's happening? Think about the underside of a dinner plate when you've got that ridge where it sits on the table. That's what you're creating. All of that little ridge are the remaining, the back loop that you've not used of those stitches. All right, and I'm going to place a stitch marker into the unused part of the stitch we're working into at present to just kind of note that that's the bottom. I'll turn it back over. You can't see it, it's fine. We're just marking that stitch. So I've done 1 half treble and 1 treble, which is at the very, very bottom of the heart. I'm going to complete this by putting a half treble in the same space. Now you can hold off on putting that stitch marker in until you've done all 3 things in that stitch if you want. It doesn't make any difference at all, but I'm sort of placing it there just shows you're at the very bottom of the heart. So we're going to go and do the same stitches up the other side of the heart now. So 3 double crochet front loops only, 1, 2 and 3, and a half treble, all front loops only, and then those 5 treble into the next stitch, 5, and we're going to skip a stitch here, and we're going to finish with a double crochet into the top of the 3 chains, so the 3rd chain of our starting 3 chain. So I'm just going to put that in there now, and I'll stop before we join. You can see we've got a heart shape already, haven't we? A lovely heart shape. So we are going to make 1 chain, and we're going to slip stitch over here to join, but do not worry because that does get hidden, and I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the first double crochet that we made to join. All right. Right, and we're going to fasten off. We will not be turning, we will fasten off. Okay, so we've got a sort of rough heart shape here. If I sort of press down there, you can see it's going to end up very heart shaped indeed. Okay, we are now going to add that lovely surface crochet detail, and you can see here on my cardinal heart I'm using the pink as the surface crochet detail. I'm going to put some cream on here because it stands out beautifully. Right, I've switched to my 4.5mm hook, so make sure for this part you're going to switch to the slightly larger hook. We're going to start by joining the yarn into the top of the double crochet, the first double crochet that we made at the beginning of the last round, and we've also slip stitched a join into it. So you can see, I'll just point it here, here's that double crochet, and I'm going to put my hook in exactly the same place where we slip stitched to join. And all I'm going to do to join in the cream yarn, which is going to be my surface crochet yarn, so it'll probably be blush for you if you're working the original Indigo Dreams, just going to pull through a loop. I'm going to leave that yarn really long. Nothing else needs to happen at this point. That is it. We are joined, ready to go. Now with surface crochet, all I'm going to do is make slip stitches around, and I'll show you what I mean. We've got to do slip stitches in the next 11 stitches. So I'm going to put my hook under the next stitch, both legs, and pull through and pull through. So that's a slip stitch. I'll do the same again. So that's number 1. Come across to the next stitch, go through, pull through, pull through. That's number 2. Try not to pull them too tight, and you're going to just do that for the next 11 stitches. So here's number 3, and I'm turning the heart as I work, and 4, just to try and keep my stitches consistent and even, 5, 6, 7. I absolutely love surface crochet. It's really adds something, I think. 8, 9, 10, and 11. Now we're right down now at the point, the bottom point of the heart, as you can see. So we're going to make 1 chain, and we're going to just turn slightly and carry on up the other side, doing another 11 stitches. So into the next stitch, 1, 2, okay, number 11. And where that leaves us, where we end, is almost but not quite at the beginning. So you can see that we've still got 1 stitch sitting to the left of our surface stitch. And if I bring that close, you can see that that is a double crochet. And that is handy because what we're now going to do is going to start working towards the centre of the heart to finish and give it that sort of heart shape. And to get us a step on the way, we're going to work into the base of that double crochet. So where that double crochet ends or begins, if you like, so the base of it, I'm going to put my hook through there and work my slip stitch there. And I'm turning the heart again, can you see? So it is sitting at the base of that double crochet. I'll take that back and show you one more time because this is a slightly twiddly bit. So let me get all of the ends out of the way. You can see that double crochet between my fingernails, my thumbnails here, and you can see the base, the gap at the base of it, just about. That's where the hook is going to go, in there, and I will do my slip stitch. Now I'm not going to pull things too tight here because it's got a little bit further to travel. It's got to come down where my hook is resting now at the center of the hook. It's got to go that far. So if I pull things too tight, it's going to create quite a long stitch coming from the center, and we don't really want that. So my hook is now pointing exactly where we're going next. We're going through the center of the heart, and I'm going to just turn everything over just to make sure I'm not catching any yarns in, and I will pull the yarn through and create my slip stitch. So let's see where we are now. You can see what's happened is we've worked up and round and down into the center of the heart, and it's given it that beautiful shape, that very distinctive heart shape. All right, so we are now at the center, and I'm going to turn my heart again. Okay, and I'm going to do the identical thing to what I've done over on this side, which is, if you remember, we worked into the base of that double crochet. Okay, now we've joined into the top of the double crochet, so it's slightly easier to see. Here's my double crochet coming out underneath my slip stitch, and there's a hole just at the base. My hook is going through, pick up the yarn, give it a little pull so it's not too tight, and bring it through the center. Okay, now let me stop there because we cannot do any more with our hook. We've got to now finish with a needle, but look at that. You have now really reinforced that heart shape, made it look extraordinarily hearty. And you're just going to finish that off now with a darning needle rather than the hook. So I'm going to get my needle and show you how to finish off and mimic the last slip stitch to complete that lovely surface crochet. I've cut the yarn. I've left approximately 20 centimeters tail there as directed in the pattern, and I'm going to be using my darning needle. It's intentional that it's got a bent tip. It doesn't matter anything, any darning needle is fine. But before I thread it, I'm going to put it through the little loop of the last slip stitch. Just pull that a bit, and now I can use my fingers to pull the yarn all the way through the work. All right, so there is the cut end, and you can see now that it's come all the way through the work. So we're going to thread the needle with the cut end of the yarn. Okay, and now I'm going to mimic, get that pink out of the way, I'm going to mimic a slip stitch to finish off this little pattern. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take the needle and I'm going to go under the very first slip stitch that we made, under both legs of the very first slip stitch that we made. Pull through, do not pull too tight because we're just trying to mimic the shape of the existing slip stitches. And I'm going to go back in to where the yarn is coming out, and when I pull that through, you will see I've got a lovely pretend slip stitch that looks just like all the others. Now while my yarn is threaded up, I'm going to sew my ends in, and we are told at this point to sew our ends in. And I want to show you, because what I want to make sure is on the back here, you can see that raised ridge, or that ridge that we talked about, that circular ridge that we talked about, which is created when we worked our front loops only. And I don't want to go anywhere near those. I want to leave those because we're going to work into them. So when I'm sewing in my my ends, I'm going to just come down and go under the stitches that are working around the center, the very center, because I've avoided that extra, those unused loops, which we are going to use. Actually, with this cream, I might just go, the other thing you can do is just go through the back of the slip stitches. It's another thing, because that's also completely avoiding the back loops that we need. Okay, so that should do that. And with this last one, which is close to the centre, I'm going to close the centre up a little, because I've done what I need to in that centre point. So if I want to just close that a little, I can. Try not to sew in the stitch marker. Okay, come back on itself. Let's have a look, see what that looks like. Okay, lovely. So we've now got a nice defined heart shape, and do not worry about here, because that's going to be covered, and it will leave you with a very, very nice neat heart that will look like this when your granny square is attached on the back. Speaking of attaching granny squares, that's next, so let's get on with that part. Okay, I'm now starting round 3. I'm back with the 4mm hook. If you're working the Indigo Dreams version of the pattern, you'll be using denim. And if you're working Crimson Dreams, you'll be using flax. So the main colour, if you like, of the granny square. So this is the denim version for the Indigo Dreams. Okay. So I'm starting with the right side facing me. I know it's the right side because it looks pretty. But what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to turn it round, turn the heart round so the point is pointing away from me. And I'm just going to bend it backwards. And when I bend that point up, what you will see is that you can see, if I bring that close to the camera, this little ridge pops right out. The little ridge, which is the circular ridge we've been talking about, that pops right to the fore. So it makes it very easy to see where we're going to work, because we're going to start working into those unused stitches, or unused loops of stitches. And I'm going to start in the one that we marked. All right, just if I pull it like that, I don't even need to take that marker out straight away, so I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to go into that marked stitch. I'm just using a pale blue so as not to confuse matters further, and the way I'm going to join my yarn is pull through a loop and then secure with a chain. Okay, that is secured. I'm going to just now take out the stitch marker. We do not need that anymore. That's done. All right, so our yarn is joined. If I fold the heart back, you can see I'm still working from the right side, but I'm working underneath. I'm working underneath the heart into those unused loops. So let's have a look. How does that work? Where do we go next? Right, so we're joined in. We are now going to make 1 double crochet into the same place, because what we've just done doesn't count as a stitch. It is just us, purely us attaching the yarn. So that's our first stitch. That's our 1 double crochet. We're now going to do 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches. And again, if I pull back or fold forward even my work, you can just see that ridge sitting across the top, and that's where I'm going to be working. So 4, 1, 2, 3, turning as I go, and 4. And this is just us giving ourselves a foundation, if you like, to attach the outer sort of the granny square to. Okay, so we've done 1 double crochet into the next 4 stitches, 1 chain. We're going to skip the next stitch, so ignore that stitch, and we're getting really close, as you can see, to the back of those slip stitches, and that's perfect. So 1 double crochet into that very last loop that we can see, right, 2 chain, and our pattern says skip next group of stitches. Now what does that mean? If I just turn that all the way over for now, just to show you, you can see we've got this V coming up, which is where we created the V on the front of the work with the slip stitches, and we can't do anything in there. So the next stitch I can see, the next loop is coming out here. Can you see under this thumbnail? It's coming out here, coming out from that little sort of V point there, and that's where we're going to go next. Okay, so now we know where we're going. I've gone back to having the heart face me. We'll turn that back down, and you can see I've pulled up that loop. I'm going to put 1 double crochet in there, 1 chain. We'll skip the next stitch, so the next stitch is here. As you can see, I'm going to miss that, and I'm going to finish by doing 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, and like as I said, if you fold this down, they pop to the top and they're easier to see, which is really good. 3 and 4, and that's brought me round to the beginning, and I can now slip stitch into the first stitch to join. So it might be a little bit tight, the first one, but do not worry. Okay, slip stitch to join. So we're still looking here at the right side of the work, but I'm just going to turn over to the back so you can see what we've done. We have created a nice little ring, a little foundation, if you like, where we are able to start working our granny square. So, okay then, we are now working round 4, and I'm still looking at the heart. It's upside down at the moment, but I'm still working from this side of the work. That's going to happen now throughout. We're not going to be turning anything over. We're just going to be carrying on working around and around in our lovely, to create our lovely granny square. So my last, the last thing I've done is slip stitch to join this round, and I'm not going to do a chain or anything like that. I'm going to slip stitch across. So I'm going to slip stitch in the next 2 stitches. This is at the beginning of round 4. 1 and 2. And I'm now going to make 3 chain, 1, 2 and 3, and put 2 treble into that same stitch. So where I've come out of with the slip stitch, 2 treble into the same space, and this you will recognize is a 3 treble cluster. We're starting to work our granny square. Okay, right, 3 chain, 1, 2, 3, and 3 treble into the next into the same stitch. And you probably, if you do make granny squares, will now recognize that what you've made there is a corner. Right, so it starts to become a little bit familiar now. Okay, so you can see our first sort of granny corner has been made. We're going to make 1 chain. So we're always going to be using a chain to sort of skip between the corners. That's worth remembering. And we are going to skip 2 double crochet, 1, 2, and using my right thumb here, 1, 2, and we're also going to skip this chain. See the chain space there, and we're going to be working our next corner into this double crochet. So worked in the same way. 3 treble, 3 chain, 3 treble. Nice sort of consistent standard granny corner. All right, and here make our 1 chain to skip across, and you can see we're sort of up at the top of the heart here. We've made 2 granny corners, and we're going to skip the 2 chain we made right at the top. Okay, 1 and 2, and we'll go into the top of the next double crochet stitch to make our next corner. Same again. All right, that's the 3rd corner, so 1 chain to skip to the last corner, and we're going to miss out. We're going to skip what are we skipping? 1 chain, which is here, and 2 double crochet, 1, 2, and we're going to be working our last corner into the 3rd double crochet down, which is just where my fingernail is there. So last corner, just the same as before, 3 treble, 3 chain, 2 and 3 treble, all in the same place. 2, 3, and we will finish with 1 chain just as before, and we're going to slip stitch into the top of the beginning 3 chain. All right, so that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, going to go in there and slip stitch. Now we won't fasten off, but we will just look. I'll take my hook out, and you can see we've now got a small little beginnings of a granny square with 4 corners, 1, 2, 3 and 4, and we are ready to move on now to round 5. Right, we're going to slip stitch across to this corner. All right, so slip stitch into maybe 1, maybe 2 stitches, and once into the chain space at the corner. So we're now coming out of the chain space, and what we're going to do is we're going to, again, if you're familiar with granny squares, you'll know what we're going to do. We are going to create another one of those granny square corners. So 3 chain will count as our first treble, and then 2 more treble into that for our first little cluster. And then 3 chain and 3 treble. Okay, and now what we're going to, so we've created our first corner there. We are going to make 1 chain, just as before. We are now going to start joining in our heart. All right, so let me look at my little sample here. We've worked our first corner, which is here and here, and we're now going to join. If you can see, this cluster has kind of caught in those stitches, so it's really sort of anchored down that heart. That's what we're now going to do in the pattern. So we are going to work sort of behind the surface crochet. I'll take my hook out. We're going to work into the pink stitches here. If you can see, it sort of sits just at the top of the surface crochet. We're going to catch them in there with our cluster, and we're at the same time going to work into the space underneath. I'll show you what I mean. All right, so we're going to make 3 treble into the top of the first treble of the 5 treble group. Now, do you remember all the way back there we created this curve, the curvature of the heart, by making 5 treble into 1 stitch? Do you remember? So we're going to find that first of that little group, which is this stitch here, and I'm going to follow it up to the top. Follow this, follow this, follow this, and I'm actually going to make this stitch here, which is very slightly to the right. I'm going to be working into that one. My hook's going to go through that stitch, and it's going to go through that gap. So let me show you that again. It's in the top of that the first of those 5 trebles, and it's going through the gap in the granny square that we're making. That is where the hook is going to go as I make my 3 trebles. So let me do that. So we've come out of the corner, we've done the 1 chain, and we're ready to do our next 3 trebles. So yarn is around the hook. I have found the first of the group of 5 trebles, going into the stitch at the top, which is very slightly to the right. My hook's going through the gap between the clusters of my granny square, and that is treble number 1, and I'm going to do that 2 more times. So through the pink here, through the gap, 2, and again through the same stitch, through the gap, and I have now really anchored down that heart into my granny square. All right, so that's all the attachment we're going to do at this side for the moment. So 1 chain again, and we're going to work up into our corner here, nice and easy. Make a normal corner, which is the 3 treble, 3 chain, 3 treble. Okay, so that's our top right corner done. We're now going to take care of this center point. I told you we'd get rid of it and it would disappear. We're going to do that now. So 1 chain as usual when we're coming out of our corner, and where we're going to work our treble cluster this time, I'll take my hook out, we're going to go into the chain space at the top of the heart and through the corresponding chain space in the granny square. So you can see I'm going through the heart and the granny square at the same time, and we'll make 3 treble again there. All right, so yarn around the hook through the chain spaces at the top of the heart, through the space in the granny square, and our 3 treble go into that place. So 1, 2, and 3. And if I just give that a little pull, space it out a little, it hides the top and it will give our heart the definition, the final definition of a perfect heart as we work round. All right, so that's joined at the top. So 1 chain again going into our next corner. Our next corner is uncomplicated, so it's 3 treble, 3 chain, 3 treble. I'll quickly do that. Okay, so that's that corner. I've turned the heart again, so I'm looking at it sideways on. 1 chain coming out of the corner, and we're going to match what we did over here on the first side. Over here, where we attached the edge of the heart, we're going to do the same thing over on this side. Now, this time we are going to be looking for the last treble of the 5 treble group that we did. So you can see that all coming out of that 1 stitch, and where my thumbnail is here, that is the 5th treble. So yarn around the hook, I will follow the 5th treble up to the top, and this time my hook is going slightly to the left of the stitch, just very slightly. Whoops, and I forgot to go through the other one, didn't I? Let me do that again. So yarn around the hook, find the 5th treble, which is this one here. I'm going to go up to the top of it, and this time the stitch sits just very, very slightly to the left. So my hook will go through there, and it will go through the corresponding space underneath in the granny square, and that's going to be where I make my 3 treble, all in the same space there, same space underneath. So it's getting nice and secure now, through and through. Okay, so we've now joined, if I go that way up, you can see we've now joined both sides of the heart. 1 chain, and we'll finish the last corner, last uncomplicated corner. 3, 3, 3. Okay, so 1 chain coming out of the corner, and the last thing to do is to attach the point of the heart to the granny square. Okay, and what we're going to do is slightly different. We're not putting 3 treble through there, we're just going to do 1. So I'm just going to fold that point down slightly so you can see the granny square gap behind. I'm going to start with 1 treble in there, and the 2nd treble, the middle treble of the 3, is going to come through the heart as well. So yarn around the hook, and I'm going to go through the center of that chain that we made, the one chain at the base. And again, if you need to use your hook, where are you? There we go. If you need to use your hook to sort of dig about a bit, that's fine. So my hook has gone through the chain, and it's going to go through the corresponding space behind as well to create the second treble. And you can see that has now anchored that heart at the bottom. And then the last treble goes just into, just sort of see it now, just into the granny square space only. It doesn't go back through the heart, goes into the granny square space only. And complete our treble there. One chain and slip stitch into the top 1, 2, 3 of the third chain to complete the round. I'm just going to put that through there. Find that very tricky to get through. There we go. So we have, I'll just turn that round to show you. Oh, so pretty. So pretty. All right, so that is all the structure done of the Love Heart Granny Square. And we're going to finish off on round 6 by doing a really lovely round of half trebles, which is lovely and simple, but I will go through it with you. But I just wanted a little moment to admire our work. Isn't it beautiful? So background we go then. So it sort of starts upside down. We've slip stitched to join at the end of round 5, and we're now going to go into round 6, 2 chain, and that's going to count as our first half treble. All right, 1 half treble into the next 2 stitches, which will take you over to the corner. And I just sort of want to show you how each element is dealt with these half trebles. You don't then have to sit and watch the whole thing. So in the corners, we're going to do 2 half trebles. 1, 2, and we're going to do a treble, and that's going to be the actual sort of center of the corner, or the pointed part of the corner, if you like. 1 treble, and then 2 half trebles again, and I can now turn my work, whoops, and come along the other side. I will then put 1 half treble in each stitch of each cluster. So that's 1, that's 2, and that's 3. And I will put 1 half treble between each cluster. Okay, so back in clusters is 3, 1, 2, 3. So basically in the top of every stitch, and where you've got a chain space, you're just going to put 1 in there. And the corners are 2 half trebles, 1 treble, 2 half trebles. And that's all you're going to do all the way around. It's a very nice, relaxing round after having to concentrate. All right, so I'll just finish that up. Here comes my treble. And I will see you at the end. Okay, I'm right back to the beginning. I'm going to just put 1 half treble in that last chain space, and then slip stitch into the top of the first. Cut my yarn. I very much like this colour actually. Shall we bug Jane to make another one? Fasten off. And here you go. Here we are. A very cute, I just love these. Very lovely Love Heart Granny Square. So we have covered creating the hearts, working into front loops only. We've done surface crochet. Then we've worked into the back loops to attach our granny square. And we've worked our granny square, anchoring the heart as we go. I hope you found that useful and have a lot of fun making these beautiful squares.